I wish to welcome you this evening. I want to extend a warm welcome to each of our church family. Thank you all for coming out. This evening we'll begin a series of meetings this weekend that are brought to us by the health ministry of our church. The meetings are brought to us by Dr. Noah Chelliah. He comes to us from North Dakota, so we want to give him a welcome from the South. That is, we don't think of ourselves as South, but believe me, when you come from North Dakota or Minnesota or that area, Ohio is the South. So we want to welcome him to our church this evening. He will begin this evening with a message on spices to spice up your life. He will also be back again tomorrow afternoon. He will have a gospel music concert that will be at 2 o'clock, and at 3:30 tomorrow afternoon he will have a message that deals with cancer. So we want to welcome him here to our church this weekend. As we begin our sessions, I'd like to bow our heads to pray. Heavenly Father, we come to you and we welcome your presence with your Holy Spirit. We welcome you to this place, but not only just this place, but also into our hearts. Find a welcome spot to live in our hearts, to be with us, to mold us, to help us to grow. We thank you for the opportunity that we have tonight to hear these messages. We pray that we will be blessed and we will be given wisdom and understanding of how we should be taking care of our bodies as you have designed them. We thank you again for the promise of your blessings. In your name, amen.
Thank you, Lee. Nice to see all of you here and part of health ministry. I thank the church for giving me this opportunity to bring you guys together and talk about health issues. I've been talking with Dr. Noah Chelliah for a few months. I heard him speak in Maryland once and through YouTube, and I found him to be a very interesting speaker. I like some of the topics he covers, and I thought it would be a good thing to bring him to our church. Got a brief introduction about him. He's a practicing physician from North Dakota. He works at the University of North Dakota. He's both interventionally and general cardiology, but he has a passion for health ministry. He reviews a lot of articles. So we're very happy to have him. Unfortunately, we're having a problem with our PowerPoint, our slides. We can't project it. Hopefully we can get that somewhat sorted out throughout the presentation, but I think he might do it on the fly.
The talk is on spices, how spices can enhance your health. That's the talk for this evening. Before I start with the spices, I want to ask you a question. Do you understand the term antioxidant? How many of you know what antioxidant is? Please put up your hands. Okay, a lot of you know. Those of you who don't know, I will explain it briefly. If you cut an apple, put it on the kitchen counter, after a few minutes, what happens? Turns brown. By the way, I want this to be an interactive session, so I want people to have microphones. This is not a lecture. This is an interactive session, which means if you don't understand something I said, please stop me and ask the question right now, okay? So if you cut an apple, put it on the kitchen table, it turns brown. That's oxidation, okay? It is similar to you took some nails and threw it in the backyard, come back 2 weeks later, it's rusted. That's oxidation. Are you getting the hang of it? So the body produces certain changes which actually promote rusting of the body, so to speak, crudely put, okay? Rusting of the nails, that's oxidation. Now, if you took the same apple that you cut into slices, sprinkle some lemon juice, put it back on the table, what happens? It doesn't turn brown. So what is the lemon juice doing? It's an antioxidant. Get the idea now? All spices we're going to talk about this evening are antioxidants. All right? So antioxidants are agents which prevent the deterioration of the body functions and body organs and so on, cellular functions and so on, okay? The first, there are various spices. We are going to talk about turmeric, ginger, garlic. Have you wondered, does ginger do any good? Does garlic do any good? And there are so many wrong information floating around in the internet. And so I want to make sure you have the proper understanding. By the way, just before I go forward, every piece of facts I present today is being gleaned from reputable medical journal articles, published in reputable medical, in very reputable sources. We review about 5,000 articles a year, gleaned all the information from these articles to produce some of the facts I present today, okay? The first thing I want to talk about is turmeric. How many of you know what turmeric is? Right. It's by the way, for those of you who may not know where turmeric comes from, it looks like a ginger root. It's a root, and it's slightly slender, and when you cut it, it's orange in color, whereas when you cut ginger, it's white in color. Turmeric has been used for ages, probably 5,000 years. There are 5,000 articles in reputable literature about the use of turmeric in various diseases. 5,000 articles. Let me give you some example. I'm not going to tell you all about the 5,000 articles. I'm going to give you some highlights. They took 45 patients with severe rheumatoid arthritis. They divided them into 3 categories, 15, 15, and 15. Okay? The first 15 got conventional medications. By the way, some of the conventional medications are potentially toxic. Some of the newer medication for arthritis, I don't want you to raise your hand, but I'm sure some of you may be on some of those new medications. And they are about between $10,000 and $20,000 a year. Very expensive. By the way, for $10,000 to $20,000 a year, I would want, rainbows and flowers and kisses and, but they have black label warning saying this can cause death, severe anemia, bone marrow depletion. Those are the side effects of this medication after paying $20,000. I would think you would get something better than that. Now, here's the thing. The second 15 got turmeric powder. The third got a combination of both. The first group got better, but a lot of side effects. The second group got better, no side effects. The third group got both of them. Would you believe when they took both of them, the conventional medication, you can turn the volume down. When you took both of them, conventional medication plus turmeric, the side effects from the conventional medication went down. How do you like that? So it not only improved it on its own, but if you took it along with the conventional medication, the side effect of the medication actually went down. That's how powerful turmeric is. Another study published showed they had about 15 patients who had terminal colorectal cancer. They tried all kinds of chemotherapy. None of them worked. So these researchers said, we are out of options. So somebody said, why not try turmeric? They gave them capsules of turmeric. 5 out of 15 got better. Now you'll say, only 30%, 1/3, but with the conventional medication, 0%. So I would think 30% is a heck of a lot better than 0%, okay? In another study, what they did was they took turmeric, made it into an ointment, applied it to a fungating, ulcerating breast cancer. It healed up in a few weeks. They did the same thing to cervical cancer, ulcerated. That healed up in a few weeks. Now, let me ask you a question. Why are you all not consuming turmeric every day? Huh? You know how much it costs per day? Less than 5 cents. Now, turmeric has been known to kill cancer cells, many different cancer cells. I only gave you colon cancer, breast cancer. It probably is effective against prostate cancer, and so on, okay? So turmeric is absolutely wonderful substance. Okay, now here's the beauty. If you took a teaspoon of turmeric, alone, you get a certain amount of benefit. If you took a teaspoon of turmeric with a pinch of black pepper, it works 2,000% better. That means 20 times better. In other words, if you took 1 teaspoon of turmeric with a pinch of black pepper, it is same as you consuming 20 teaspoons of turmeric. It works better with just a pinch of black pepper. Now, I have to say this, but I'm from India, and you know, Indians have been doing this for 2,000 years. They always cook with, whenever they use turmeric, they also put a small amount of black pepper in it. I don't know how they figured it out, but apparently it works. Okay? Now, there is a extract of turmeric. It's called curcumin. Cumin, I don't know how you want to pronounce it. That is a very strong, extract. It also works, but I would caution you against using curcumin, especially if you have renal failure, kidney failure. You may want to be very careful about curcumin. That can cause problems. Okay? But anytime you extract something from a plant, put it into a capsule, the cost goes up about 20 to 50 times, 100 times. Where do I buy turmeric? In the grocery store, particularly Asian grocery store. Now, I use, those of you, you don't know anything about me, I actually serve a free lunch every Saturday at Sabbath. Every Sabbath lunch I serve in my office, free of charge. Last week, about 20 people showed up. Okay. Did you know every item I cooked had turmeric in it? Beans, greens, rice, what else did I have? Mushrooms. Last week I had mushrooms. I had spinach. Everybody loved it. Now I'll tell you more about it tomorrow in my lecture on cancer. But turmeric should be consumed every day. How do you take turmeric if you're not used to using it in cooking? You can actually put it into like a vegetable juice, low salt vegetable juice or tomato juice, and gulp it down. It doesn't taste too bad. How many of you take turmeric on a regular basis? Oh, good, excellent. Okay, now the next spice I want to talk about is black pepper. You know, Ellen White has said that you should not use too much black pepper. So I don't recommend you use a lot of black pepper, but to enhance the effectiveness of turmeric, it's okay. All right? I'm going to digress a bit to tell you something that you may not know about. You know, Ellen White talks about, spicy food. It also talks about caffeine is bad for you, right? But here's what I want to tell you. Tobacco, nicotine is bad too, right? Let me tell you a story. About 40 years ago, 50 years ago, the tobacco industry published a paper, got everybody's eyes open. They said that people who smoke cigarettes regularly, by the way, I'm not trying to recommend smoking, I'm getting to a point here. They said the people who smoke cigarettes on a regular basis had much fewer cases of Parkinson's disease, where they handshake like that. Okay? They found that they had very few cases of Parkinson's disease if they smoked cigarettes. Now, most scientists said, they're trying to promote smoking. But when they looked at the data, they said, indeed, it does lower the incidence of Parkinson's disease. Now, I don't recommend you smoke cigarettes because you're going to end up with lung cancer and die. Now, what am I getting at? You can turn the volume up a bit. What am I getting at? Here's what I'm getting at. They found out the chemical that may be responsible for reducing Parkinson's disease is probably the nicotine. Now, I'm not recommending you consume nicotine because nicotine also can cause constriction of the coronary blood vessels and all kinds of other negative impact. But, you know, did you know that God put nicotine in the vegetable garden? How many of you are surprised? Do you know there are some vegetables which contain nicotine? None of you knew that. Have you heard of the nightshade vegetables? Eggplant is one example. Nightshade vegetables all have a tiny amount of nicotine. Now, let me ask you a question. If we ate a lot of nightshade vegetables, would you be violating one of Ellen White's commandments? No, I mean, recommendation? No, you're not. It's a plant-based thing. It's got a tiny amount of nicotine. So what I'm trying to emphasize is, I'm emphasizing health, not particular, don't do this, don't do this. I'm saying, overall, what is the best way to preserve health? If you can do something that will promote your health, that is what I'm looking for. Okay, don't get, carried away in these little details. So I'm not recommending you go out and consume lots of nicotine. I recommend you eat a lot of vegetables, which contain a tiny amount of nicotine. So one way to counteract or prevent onset of Parkinson's disease is to actually eat nightshade vegetables. That's what I'm getting at, okay? So I'm trying to give you an overview of what I'm getting at. So don't get, hung up on these little details. Now, let's go back to the next one. So black pepper in a tiny amount to enhance the effectiveness of turmeric is, I think, is perfectly fine. I wouldn't use tons and tons of it, not a good idea, but certainly a tiny amount to enhance the, potency of turmeric is perfectly all right. The next one I want to talk about is ginger. Let me come to ginger later. Let me talk about cayenne pepper. How many of you like cayenne pepper? Let me ask you, how many of you don't like cayenne pepper? There are a few. Fascinating article. They took volunteers. This is called the volunteers. That means they knew, fully aware of what they're going to do. They read the consent form and they signed it. They said, we know what you're signing for. And they took these volunteers, and what they did was they cut the cayenne pepper and rubbed it in the nostril. I know. I told you, these are volunteers. They agreed to go through this test. But listen to the rest of the story. The cayenne pepper, they rubbed it and said, what does it feel like? Oh, it feels terrible. How much do you rate the pain? 10 out of 10. Oh, okay. Next day, they did the same thing. How do you feel? Oh, it's terrible. What do you feel? About 9 out of 10. Okay. Next day, they rubbed it again. What do you think? Oh, it's about 8 out of 10. It kept on going down after a week or two. And then after a while, it didn't bother them at all. Now, what they did was, if they continued the cayenne pepper rubbing into the nostril, it didn't do much. However, if they gave them a rest period, in other words, they didn't do anything for 2 weeks and then rubbed it back again, the pain came back 10 out of 10 again. So the scientist explained this in a fashion way. He said, there is a nerve that supplies the jaw and the taste buds and all that. It's called the trigeminal nerve. Okay? It supplies the eyes, the mouth, and the jaw. And the trigeminal nerve is responsible for getting the impulse of the pain from the cayenne pepper. So how does it transmit the impulse to the brain? It uses a tiny amount of chemical, and for want of imagination, the scientists call it the P substance, pain substance. Okay? It releases a drop of this, micro drop of this chemical that goes through the nerve and causes the sensation of pain. The scientists theorized that when you kept on tickling the trigeminal nerve, it ran out with the stores of the P substance. That is why after a couple of weeks, when you rubbed it, there was no P substance, even though you may have some sensation, but it wasn't perceived as pain. Do you understand what I'm getting at? Okay. So when you gave it a rest, there was enough time for the nerve to manufacture more peace substance. So when you re-challenge it after a couple of weeks, the pain came back in full force. Now, what am I getting at? Well, there is a kind of headache called the suicide headache. How many of you know about the suicide headaches? It's called cluster headaches. It only occurs on one side of the head, either right or left, not both. Okay? And it is so severe, the pain is so severe, people want to commit suicide. People do commit suicide. They can't take it anymore. They say, I can't do it, and they bang their head against the wall, trying to get the pain to go away. They sometimes shoot themselves. Suicide headache. So the scientist said, wonder if we could use this technique to help them. So they took these volunteers who had the cluster headache. If they had it on the right side, they rubbed it on the left nostril. No, wait, just hang on a second. If they had the pain on the left side, they rubbed it on the right nostril. In medical terms, this is called contralateral. That means opposite side of where you have the problem. Nothing happened. When they rubbed it on the same side, ipsilateral, half of them quit having headaches. Amazing, huh? In Japan, they don't like spicy food. See, there is a common thing called dyspepsia. I'm sure all of you know what dyspepsia is, right? Where the stomach upset, just feel all the time. Irritable bowel syndrome, you know. And so in Japan, they did an experiment. They gave them capsules of cayenne pepper powder because they don't like to eat cayenne pepper raw. And would you believe there was a dramatic improvement in the dyspepsia. Now, there is a chemical in cayenne pepper called capsaicin. How many of you heard of capsaicin? What do you use it for? Arthritis. Could it be that, by the way, I'm older than many of you here. You know, I don't have any arthritis. Could it be because I consume lots of cayenne pepper? I'm not a volunteer experiment. I'm just telling you, cayenne pepper has been known to be very useful for reducing arthritis pain. If I might digress a minute, let me tell you something else too. When it comes to arthritis, I'm supposed to talk about spices. I will talk about all the spices, but I'm going to digress a bit. Because a lot of elderly folks have arthritis. I want to tell you a bit of information that might help you. You know, have you heard of the arthritis medication like ibuprofen and indomethacin and all that? A lot of people take that. What is the problem with that? There are two problems with that. One is it causes stomach ulcers. Okay? What time I have? Okay. It causes stomach ulcers. And it can also cause heart attacks in small number of people. So the mechanism is this. There is a, let me go backwards. In Scotland, they have a very delicate food called haggis. How many of you know about the haggis? They take sheep's intestine, fill it with all kinds of meats and sheep fat, and cook it. And it's considered a delicacy in Scotland. Now, so that whole stuff is the sheep's stomach, right? When humans eat the sheep's stomach, the acid digests the stomach, correct? Are you with me so far? Anybody miss what I'm trying to say? Do I need to repeat it? When you eat the stomach of a sheep, which is what they do in Scotland, the human stomach will digest it. The acid will destroy the stomach. So the question is, how come your acid in your stomach, which is like a pH of 1.5, 1.3, it's very, very strong acid, how come it doesn't destroy your stomach lining? Anybody wondered about that? It destroys the sheep's lining, but it doesn't destroy your lining. How come? That is because there is a chemical that your stomach forms called cyclooxygenase. it's very difficult for me to do the tongue twister every time. Cyclooxygenase. So I'm going to COX, C-O-X. Cyclooxygenase enzyme is the one that coats the stomach lining and prevents the acid from destroying the stomach lining. Are you with me? Now, unfortunately, there are two kinds of COX enzyme, COX-1 and COX-2. COX-1 is a good guy. It protects you. COX-2 is a bad guy. COX-2 is the one that causes inflammation of the arthritis. It causes all kinds of other problems, including promotion of cancer. I will talk about it tomorrow. Now, if you take indomethacin or ibuprofen or any of those arthritis medication, unfortunately, they will block the formation of both COX-2 and COX-1. Are you with me so far? It blocks the bad COX-2, but it also blocks COX-1. That means the protection of the lining of the stomach is gone. That is how the stomach gets destroyed by the acid. Are you with me? The protection is taken away, so the stomach gets destroyed. Are you with me? Okay, anybody didn't understand that? COX-1 and COX-2? Now, about 25 years ago, a company came up with a brilliant idea. Said, you know what? The trick is we need to block COX-2 without blocking COX-1. And they said, wow, we found a new drug that will only block COX-2, will not block COX-1. And sure enough, it did not block COX-1, it blocked only COX-2. And they started selling it by the billions until people started dropping dead. That drug is called Vioxx. It had to be taken off the market. Okay? Interestingly enough, God put a solution to this already. Did you know that cherries, the dark cherries, have a chemical that blocks COX-2 enzyme only? Have you ever heard of somebody eating too many cherries and got stomach ulcers? No, because it blocks COX-2, but it does not block COX-1. Which means if you ate 10 to 15 cherries a day, it is as effective as taking ibuprofen or indomethacin for arthritis. How many of you knew that? Go ahead and start eating cherries every day. What's the downside? Don't eat the pits though. Okay? So I taught you another way to reduce inflammation of arthritis, cherries. Another one that was found to be useful in arthritis is cilantro. How many of you hate cilantro? Hate. Anybody hate cilantro? Actually, believe it or not, 50% of the world hates cilantro. Do you know why? Researchers actually did a study on 12,000 volunteers and figured out the answer. They found that actually there's a gene responsible for your taste and smell of cilantro. What they found was there is a chemical in the cilantro that smells like soap or stinks like stink bug. In fact, when they analyzed it, they found that the chemical in the stink bug is similar to the chemical that in cilantro. Half the world's population, the gene is inactive. In other words, it is not working right. We are the fortunate people who love cilantro because we cannot smell the stink bug smell. Okay? The people who hate cilantro are the people who have the gene intact. So they can smell the stink bug smell. They say, oh, that's terrible, take it away from me. Cilantro has been shown to be useful for arthritis. Okay, now I finished that digression. We'll go back to now, so I finished talking about cayenne pepper. The next I want to talk about is ginger. I don't know how many of you consume ginger on a regular basis. I want to hear from women. How many women are taking ginger on a regular basis? Oh my goodness gracious. Oh, it's terrible. Did you know that ginger can prevent cancer? Did you know that consumption of ginger is the most effective solution for nausea of any cause? For example, pregnant women can take ginger up to 20 grams a day to prevent nausea without any harm to the fetus. It is quite safe, unless you go, bonkers. Up to 20 grams, that's quite a lot. Did you know that it also actually causes, in menstruating women, young women, it will reduce the menstrual pain dramatically, and it will also lower the menstrual blood loss by 50%. So I don't know why women are not taking ginger every day. It kills cancer cells. Another study, by the way, how many of you travel a lot on the planes? How many? Not much, huh? Well, I travel quite a bit. Yeah, Dr. Rajan does too. I travel quite a lot, like I did today. I got up at 3 o'clock in the morning to get to the airport on time to fly here. People who fly a lot have increased risk of cancer. You know why? There's radiation up 35,000 feet when you're flying. Radiation hits you. All right? Did you know that? You get a lot of radiation. Radiologists, same problem. X-ray technicians, same problem. Airline pilots, same problem. Stewardesses, same problem. Anybody, works with X-ray machines, X-radiation of any kind, including airlines, they all have increased risk of exposure to X-radiation. They found that in X-ray department workers, when they drank 2 or 3 cups of ginger tea every week, their DNA, I had pictures, I'm so sorry I can't show you the pictures. They showed that the DNA damage, it looks like a comet sign because the cells disintegrate and looks like a comet with a tail. And I had some beautiful pictures of that. And it's called comet test. They found that people who are exposed to radiation show up to about 10 to 12% of DNA damage. By the way, if you live on this earth, you approximately have about 8% DNA damage naturally, okay? There's all kinds of other stuff. But when X-ray radiation increased their DNA damage to about 12 to 13%. When they drank 2 or 3 cups of ginger tea a week, there was a dramatic reduction in their DNA damage back to about 8%. So why are you not drinking ginger every day? Okay? Next comes garlic. Garlic is actually one of the most powerful cancer medications, spices, anti-cancer spices. However, everybody starts taking raw garlic. I believe it's an antisocial behavior. Eating raw garlic is terrible. You make your neighbors writhe in pain. Well, there is a way to get around the problem. You see, what happens is if you cook garlic, most of the benefits go away. So how do you get the benefit of garlic without, the side effect, the smell of garlic? You can do the following. Take the garlic. In fact, when you walk into the kitchen to start cooking, what you got to do is first take the garlic out, smash it with a food hammer, crush it, and leave it on the kitchen counter for 15 minutes. And then use it in cooking. How does it work? See, there are all of you know about the kids play around on Independence Day with these glow sticks, right? When you buy it in the store, it doesn't glow. What do you have to do? Crack it. What happens when you crack it? There is a chemical on each end of the stick, okay? When you crack it, the 2 chemicals come together, form a new chemical. That's the one that glows. In a similar fashion, there are 2 chemicals in garlic, in various cells. They don't come together until you crush it. When you crush it, these 2 chemicals come together and form a new chemical. The 2 chemicals that you start out with are very delicate. They are easily destroyed by heat. The new chemical that you create when they come together is a bit more tolerant to heat. Now you understand why. If you crush the garlic, let it sit for 15 minutes, it forms the new chemical, lots of it, and now you cook it lightly and you still get the benefit. Have you heard of the trick before? You learn something new. People should be consuming garlic on a daily basis because it kills cancer cells. Absolutely fantastic. All right? We talked about ginger, we talked about garlic, we talked about cayenne pepper. What shall we talk about next? I should have brought my laptop down. At least I can see. Oh, I can't even see it. It's shut down. It won't even turn on. All right. Okay, yes. Let's talk about cocoa. Right? You know, chocolate is bad for you. Why is it bad for you? It contains the actual ingredient in cocoa is actually good for you. It dilates the blood vessels. It dilates all the blood vessels, the heart, kidneys, everywhere. But unfortunately, when you add, when you try to make chocolate out of it, by the way, cocoa is bitter. So what they do is they add sugar to take down the bitterness, and that destroys the benefit of cocoa. Now, when you add milk to it, or cream, it blocks it even further. And also increase the cholesterol level. And sugar causes cancer. I will talk about it tomorrow. Sugar, consumption of sugar promotes cancer growth, particularly fructose. Okay? So, is there a way to get around the problem? See, this is what I've been doing for the last 20 years. I try to find ways of trying to get around the problem and beat the system, trying to come up with, ideas to get around the problem. How many of you know the word erythritol? Only one person. Okay. Erythritol is a vegetable product, a plant product. It's not a chemical made in the factory. It's a sugar that is made from certain fruits and mushrooms. It has no calories. There are two downsides to it. It is only half as sweet as sugar, so you have to use twice as much. And the other problem with erythritol is it's quite expensive. But let me ask you a question. If you had a choice, would you pay the grocer or would you pay the doctor? You have two choices. You pay the doctor or you pay the grocer. Who would you rather pay? You better to pay. You say you're going to pay the doctor? That would be the right answer to help me out, but no. If I thought that, I wouldn't be giving you lectures on this, right? Erythritol is a sweetener. It is worth the cost. By the way, it can tolerate heat. You can cook with it, you can bake with it. You can do pretty much anything you want with it. It takes a little longer to dissolve in water. You have to maybe heat the water a bit to get the thing to dissolve, but it's wonderful stuff. Erythritol, by the way, it's available in Walmart. I used to have to order it online, and now the local Walmart carries it. So you don't have to go far to find it. It's spelled Erythritol, erythritol. Erythritol, erythritol. And so you take baking cocoa powder, which is bitter, add erythritol. Now you sweeten the cocoa, right? Put it in hot water, and you have hot chocolate now. And the beauty of it is, the more you eat, the better off you are. Healthy. I mean, how can you beat something that the more you consume, the healthier you get? Don't tell me you don't believe that. You have to. I mean, this is fact. I mean, this is what I've been trying to do. I'm trying to make things easy for people to follow. And I've been working with various ideas of trying to make it easy for people to follow a healthy diet. Okay? So we talked about cocoa. What about, we talked about ginger, garlic, cayenne pepper. What else did we talk about? Any other spice that you think of right now? Oh, cumin, for example. Did you know it helps you lose weight? Cumin. It increases the metabolic rate. There are two kinds of cumin. One is black and one is white. Cumin, I don't know how you pronounce it. Black cumin, white cumin, both of them will help you lose weight. Okay? So that's another spice you can use. Black cumin increases metabolic rate, so it burns more calories quicker. So it helps you lose weight. Can you put it in like tea? You can use it in cooking. You know, I use it cooking, like make a curries out of it. Somebody had a question there? Okay. Anybody has a microphone that they can use to let people speak? Any other spice you think of? I'm trying to figure out all the other spices I want to talk about. Oh, there are some spices you should not use. One is nutmeg. They commonly use it at Christmas, right? Promote Christmas cheer, right? That nutmeg, okay, that nutmeg actually gives you hallucinations, cause you loopy. So nutmeg you should avoid. Now I'm saying if you add tiny amount on a great while, it's going to be a problem. No, it is toxic to the liver. You know, it just, I'm sorry, not toxic to the liver, it makes you loopy, it just causes hallucinations. It's a hallucinogen drug, like LSD. You don't want to do that. The other one is tarragon. Tarragon is toxic to the liver. So you want to use tarragon, if you're going to use it, use a tiny amount. It's very, very sparingly. Tarragon, the Italian spice. Okay? Let me digress a bit more. There is a, I'm going to actually borrow some information from what I'm going to talk about tomorrow. How many of you know what an Amla is? Asian Indian gooseberry. It's grown in India. It's slightly combination of bitter and sour taste. We found that it, one or two fruit a day will dramatically lower your cholesterol. It kills up to 7 kinds of cancer cells. One interesting study, they found that it reduces skin wrinkles. So if you people are worried about skin wrinkles, you should be consuming some Amla powder every day. And it's interesting that it also lowers the cholesterol by 50%, better than most statin drugs. By the way, there was a medical doctor who was also an astronaut. He was trained to be an astronaut. He was a medical doctor. I can't get his name right now. And one day he came home, and his wife said, "Honey, how are you?" He said, "Who are you?" He said, "What do you mean, who are you? I'm your wife." She suddenly realized something was wrong with this guy. He took him in the car, went to the emergency room. The doctor ran all kinds of tests. Couldn't find anything wrong with him. CT scan, MRI scan, all negative. They said, what's going on? The only thing they could find was that he was put on a cholesterol lowering medication about a month before. So he said, could it be that this caused his memory loss? They took him off the medication, his memory loss disappeared. Matter of weeks. Then they said, well, his cholesterol is still high. Maybe we should put him on half the dose. They put him on half the dose, his memory loss came back. Because he was an MD, he also wrote an article about it, published an article about this, his experience with statin drug. Now, am I saying that you should stop all your statin drug? Absolutely not. You should not do anything based on what I tell you until you discussed it with your doctor. All I'm saying is, statin drugs are not as fantastic as people claim them to be. In one study showed that only 4% of the people who take statin drugs get the benefit from the statin drugs. 96% don't. But if you've had a previous bypass surgery or multiple stents, you definitely consider staying on the statin drugs. So don't stop any of your medication because you heard me say something negative about it. But it's not the best. In Europe, you know what they're talking about? Here's the way industry solves the problem. They said people eat a lot of cheeseburgers and fries and cholesterol goes up, right? So Europe, they actually wanted to propose this. They said what they're going to do is when you get the hamburgers and the fries, as you go to the condiment section, you can have relish or whatever, and then there'll be another place where you can dispense a cholesterol pill. To lower your cholesterol that was raised by a cheeseburger and fries. I'm not joking. They actually proposed this. This is what the industry wants to do. They want you to take a cholesterol pill to lower the cholesterol that you raised by eating cheeseburgers. Any questions as we go along? Yeah, there's a question there.
My question is, you talked about cocoa. What about carob?
I talk about what?
Carob, C-A-R-O-B.
Carob, yeah. Mm-hmm. It's an equivalent. The vegan is kind of not the equivalent for chocolate, right? That what you're talking about? Carob. They use for making chocolate imitations, correct? Is that what you're talking about? Yeah. It seems to be healthy for you, carob. Not a problem. Now I know that teas are some of the best or better alternative for you. What is the best tea in the world? Hibiscus. How many of you know that? How many of you consume hibiscus tea? Good, good, good. Hibiscus tea, interesting information. One of the big drug companies about 30 years ago, I don't know, volume keeps going up and down. I don't know what's going on.
I think when you move your mic,
I'm sorry? Yeah. About 30, 40 years ago, company did tremendous amount of research coming out with the medication that lowers your blood pressure, okay? They are known as ACE inhibitors, angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitors. It was discovered about 40 years ago. They spent $1 billion developing the drug. Did you know that hibiscus tea contains a chemical that God put in there that is also an ACE inhibitor that lowers your blood pressure? God put everything you need in the plants that you eat. Hibiscus tea contains an ACE inhibitor that lowers your blood pressure. So if your high blood pressure is bothering you, why don't you start drinking some hibiscus tea every day? You can take it along with your high blood pressure medication, and then you go tell your doctor, my blood pressure is coming down. He or she might take you off the medication. Don't do it yourself, but consult your doctor. But you can start taking hibiscus tea along with your medications. But here is one precaution. If you get dry cough, hacking dry cough, you have to stop drinking hibiscus tea. Why? Because there is a side reaction in that that can cause it's called bradykinin, which makes you cough a lot. In fact, it's the same effect from the conventional ACE inhibitor medication too, okay? Now, if you drink hibiscus tea, how much? About 4 cups a day. But if you're going to drink hibiscus tea, make sure after you've drunk the hibiscus tea, you rinse your mouth with plain water. This is a very passive audience. You don't have any questions? You don't know? Thank you. Nobody asked any questions here. I'm so disappointed. Why? Because hibiscus is a very strong acid. So if you leave it in the mouth, it will soften the enamel. Especially, don't brush your teeth right after you drink hibiscus tea. You'll lose your enamel. So what you do is you rinse your mouth with plain water and wait for 30 minutes before you brush your teeth. The other way to consume hibiscus tea is drink it through a straw. That bypasses your teeth, goes straight into your throat. Okay, these are the precautions you want to use for hibiscus tea. The second best tea is white tea. Third one is green tea. Green tea has been shown to be very effective in men who have prostate cancer. They found actually Japanese and Chinese men have very few prostate cancers. When they did autopsies on the people, when they had died, they found tiny prostate cancer in almost everyone, every man. However, they never grew to affect them, their life expectancy. So scientists wondered, what's going on? They found that Chinese and Japanese men drank a lot of tea, green tea. So could it be due to that? So what they did was, they actually did a study, took volunteers in the United States, gave them a few cups of green tea, and their prostate cancer rate did not go down. Okay? So they said, what's this? Chinese and Japanese men have improved, but not in American men. So they figured out, actually Chinese, Japanese men were drinking more than 5 cups of green tea a day. So when they increased the consumption of green tea to 5 to 7 cups a day, their risk of prostate cancer went down. In fact, I had a patient that not a patient, somebody called me for advice who had prostate cancer. I recommended some green tea, along with the conventional medication. With the conventional medication, the prostate PSA didn't go down. And after he went on a green tea, it went down from 20 down to, I think, 1 or 0.5. Okay, it's anecdotal, but what's the downside? What's the downside? Okay, any other questions?
On that prostate cancer case you said, was he getting chemotherapy?
I'm sorry?
On the prostate cancer.
I can't hear you. Can you speak in the microphone, please?
The prostate cancer.
Yes?
With the green tea, were they getting treated with conventional chemo?
The one that I specifically recommended to, they treated him, but the PSA didn't come down. So I said, try this, and it came down. Another one was actually precancerous, and his prostate-specific antigen went down dramatically. That's the one that went down to about half, 0.5. Again, I mean, there are scientific studies published in the literature that show that actually they do reduce the risk of prostate cancer. I'll talk about it tomorrow, more about prostate cancer. I've got some specific recommendations about that. Any other questions on any spices today? Yes? She has a question here. You don't have to limit your question to spices. You can talk about any general health questions. I will answer.
Cinnamon. Cinnamon.
Cinnamon. Oh, yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I forgot about a series of cinnamon, cardamom, and cloves. I'm glad you mentioned that. Cinnamon is a very interesting spice. It is definitely useful. However, the idea that it lowers blood sugar is not true. What they did was, when they did the study, they used one type of cinnamon called the Chinese cinnamon. Okay, it's called cassia cinnamon or something like that. And what happened was, it lowered the blood sugar, but it also caused liver damage. They found there's a chemical in the cassia cinnamon, the Chinese cinnamon, that is the toxic to the liver. That's the same thing that lowers your blood sugar. When they use the true cinnamon, which is called the Ceylon cinnamon, Sri Lanka used to be called Ceylon cinnamon, they found no effect on the blood sugar. But it's still a very powerful antioxidant. So you can still consume it, but if you're not taking it to lower your blood sugar, don't hope for it, because it's not going to happen. Okay? Now that reminds me of the other two I want to talk about. Cloves, also powerful antioxidant. By the way, these cinnamon, cloves, and cardamom, you don't need much. Tiny amount is all you need. Cloves also has powerful antioxidant. The third one I want to spend some time on is cardamom. How many of you know what cardamom is? Cardamoms are pods, and it's very aromatic. It is the second most expensive spice. You know what the most expensive spice is? I forgot to talk about that. The most expensive spice is saffron. Maybe I'll talk about saffron, come back to cardamom. Saffron is the most expensive spice because it's actually the female crocus flower, the stencil that stick out in the flower, and they have to be the flowers come up in the morning and die by the evening, so they have to harvest that particular day when it comes up, right? So it has to be harvested by hand, and it takes about 1 square mile to get you 1 pound of saffron. Now you know why it is so expensive, okay? But the beauty of saffron is just a few threads a day will do wonders for you. You put it in water or, soy milk or almond milk and gulp it down. Found that in a study they found that it was just as effective as the standard Alzheimer medication, which is not all that effective, but it's not any worse. It did as well as a standard medication for Alzheimer's without any side effects. Okay. It also improved. Here's this experiment I want to tell you about. That's why I want to talk about it before I run out of time. You see, in the University of Florida, what they did was they took some saffron, put into water, clear water, and then kept on diluting it. Oh, this is not easy to use. They started using diluted until they could not see the color, because it adds a golden yellow color when you add saffron to it. And so they kept on doing it until it became clear as water. Okay? And you can smell, it has a very pleasant aroma. And they kept diluting until they couldn't smell it either. So they labeled it A, they took another beaker of water and labeled it B. Only they knew what was what. They had women with PMS smell, half of them smell one, half of the other one, and the women who smell the so-called water without any color or smell in it, which contains saffron, got better. It's how so little takes to improve their symptoms. Dramatic. It's amazing stuff. I buy a bottle of it for $30. You put a couple of threads is all you need per day. Now, they also tried saffron. It also improves mood. So if your spouse is crabby, feed him or her some saffron. Might improve the mood. Okay. Yes, you had a question. You can put it into water, or traditionally in India they put it into milk, cow's milk, but I don't recommend cow's milk for that. I would use it in almond milk or coconut. Soy milk.
What was the question? We're recording, so if you can ask the question, so when the DVD is made, people can.
I was just asking if you could put it in tea, or how do you use it?
Typically, in Asia and Middle East, they put it in milk, cow's milk, and they feed it to kids or adults. They call it saffron milk. It tastes good. I used to do that when I was a kid. Now I know better. They put sugar, of course, but you can use erythritol and put it into either soy milk, almond milk, or coconut milk. That will work. Okay. All it needs is 1 or 2 threads a day. Okay. Now let's go to the second most expensive spice, called cardamom. In order to understand cardamom, I have to tell you a little bit about blood cells. In the blood, there are 2 kinds of cells, red cells and white cells. The red cells are the ones that carry oxygen and hemoglobin, right? The white cells are the ones that fight disease, the immune system. Now, out of the, pardon me for going to oversimplify it just for the sake of the listeners. Out of the white cell, there are 2 kinds. One contains granules which can be stained with a particular color. They're called granulocytes because it's got granules. And the other one called agranulocyte, means we do not have any granules. And the site, there are lymphocytes. I'm sure you've heard of lymphocytes. There are two kinds of lymphocytes. Actually, there are three kinds, but we'll talk to two. There's a beta B lymphocytes and there's a T lymphocytes. And there's a subset of T lymphocytes called the natural killer cells. These actually kill by physical combat. They engulf the bacteria, viruses and foreign cell. So they found that after you consume one, by the way, normally each of those killer cells can kill up to 1 billion foreign cells like bacteria or viruses or cancer cells, right? After you consume 1 or 2 pods of cardamom, they were able to kill twice as many viruses and bacteria. So let me ask you a question. In this epidemic, so-called pandemic of COVID, why are you people not consuming some cardamom every day? Huh? I do. I take vitamin D3, zinc. These all, again, I don't want to get into a political debate here, but I hear a lot of experts talking about all kinds of various stuff, but I haven't heard anybody talk about exercising every day to boost your immune system, eating healthy, avoiding all animal products, junk food, which reduces the immune system, weakens your immunity, and consuming things like dark greens and beans. Do you know beans will dramatically improve your immune system? Dark greens will improve your green. By the way, when I talk about greens, everybody says, oh, I love iceberg lettuce. Iceberg lettuce is dark green. Kale, spinach, broccoli, collard greens. Those are dark greens. So why are you not eating dark greens every day? Why are you not eating cruciferous vegetables every day to reduce the risk of cancer? I mean, these are questions people are not. I think we need to focus on improving health, not sitting on, in the couch watching TV all day and putting on a mask. That's not going to protect you. It'll protect you perhaps some way, but more importantly, you need to be boosting your immune system dramatically to fight the disease. Any other questions? Cardamom is very effective in boosting your immune system. Any other questions? Anybody think of any other spice I've forgotten? Yes?
Does the spices lose their efficacy
I can't
by
understand.
cooking?
I'm sorry, sir?
Does the spices lose their efficacy by cooking? Or?
I still don't get you.
Any
Just
of the-
temporarily, can you temporarily move the... Okay.
Does any of the spices lose their efficacy by cooking? Or?
Yes, okay. Yeah, okay, I understood you now. The question was, do the spices lose their efficacy by cooking? The answer is, to a certain extent, but actually not much. These spices that I talked about, you'll have to cook it a lot before you lose the spice. I talked about ginger. If you cook it a lot, garlic, if you cook it a lot, you'll lose the cancer-reducing properties. That's why I told you a trick to use to get the potency up for garlic. Okay? But by and large, it will reduce it to a certain small amount, but not dramatically enough, except for garlic. Any other questions?
Is there something for memory?
Memory? Saffron improves memory. And studies have shown that what is more important is avoiding the stuff that actually destroy memory. What destroys your memory is more, avoiding those which destroy your memory is more important than boosting your memory. Saffron is the only one that I know that will boost your memory. I tease my friends by saying, you know what? I went and purchased some ginkgo biloba about a month ago to try and improve my memory. I'm still trying to look for it. I can't find it. I don't know where I put it. No, saffron seems to improve memory. But the most effective treatment is fresh fruits, vegetables, dark greens, and beans. That's the best way to improve your health. walking 4 miles a day. I'll give you some of the tips tomorrow, but briefly, I teach people the 4-4-4-4 rule. You know what that is? Walk 4 miles a day, drink 4 quarts of water a day, eat 4 cups of dark greens a day, and eat 4 servings of cooked beans every day. Beans should be never eaten raw or half cooked. It should be fully cooked before you eat it, because there's a chemical poison called lectin, and that is actually, you don't want to take that in. You want to do it. Once you heat the beans, cook the beans, lectins go away. In fact, without mentioning names, there's a physician out there in Western US, right? You probably heard him advertise all over the YouTube and video everywhere. Talks about, he talks about, don't eat this, don't eat that, it'll destroy your health. And he talks about lectins. That part is right, but the rest of it is not. I always tell people, somebody said, should I buy that stuff he is recommending? I said, if any doctor is telling you to trying to sell you something, maybe you should listen to his advice. Let me ask you a question. Am I trying to sell you any books here? No. Am I trying to sell you any pills or tablets here? No. I have no ulterior motive to give you the stock. I'm trying to improve your health. If a doctor is telling you to buy something, you have to look at his advice with great suspicion. Maybe he has ulterior motive for recommending something. Let me give you a final thing, okay? We'll talk about it more tomorrow. People who eat a lot of dark greens and carrots had lower incidence of cancer. So they decided the most important ingredient in dark greens and carrots is vitamin A and beta-carotene. So they took capsules of beta-carotene, vitamin A, and fed it to people. Do you know what happened? The people who took vitamin A supplements died sooner. Okay, next point. People who eat a lot of nuts and seeds live longer. They have fewer cancers, heart attacks, and strokes. So what they said, the scientists said, what is in the nuts and seeds? Vitamin E. They said, aha. So they took vitamin E pills, fed it to people with heart attack and strokes and all that. It increased the death rate. They died sooner. Let me give you one more example. You'll get the drift of what I'm going with this. They found that prostate cancer, is lower in men who ate a lot of tomatoes. What's in tomatoes? The red dye is called lycopene. So they said, we got to make a super pill with lots of lycopene, fed it to them. You know what happened? The cancer spread faster. Do you see the common thread of what I'm trying to teach you now?
Man can't miss a God.
Pills don't work, plants work. You want the benefit of vitamin A, eat the plants, not the pills. You want the benefits of vitamin E, eat the nuts and seeds, not pills. The same was found with multivitamins. Everybody talks multivitamin, they take multivitamin. There are 2 studies came out, one from Harvard, and the other one came out of, I think, Iowa, women's study. The one for Harvard is the 30,000 nurses study. They found in one study, it didn't do any good, but didn't do any harm. The other one, they found a slight increase in mortality rate in women who took multivitamins. We think we know what's going on there. You want to know the explanation? We have time? Here's what they found. You see, multivitamin and B complex include one of the vitamins called folic acid, right? By the way, body does not use folic acid. It uses folate. Okay? Folate is in green leafies, right? So when the scientists tried to come up with a pill to give people supplements, they found that they could not generate a folate supplement. They could only produce folic acid. They did an experiment with, mice in their laboratory. They found the mice had the enzyme that will convert the folic acid into folate, a 99% effectiveness, that enzyme. So they said, look, we have the same enzyme in human beings, so the folic acid will be turned into folate and everybody will get benefit. However, later studies showed that human beings, the enzyme in human beings is not as effective as the ones in the rats. It only converts 50% of the 50% of the folic acid into folate. So you got a lot of folic acid floating around. We don't know for sure, but we think that may be the reason why the cancer rate goes up in women who take folic acid. So again, what am I teaching you? Don't consume pills. Get it from the plants. That's really the way to go. Like the other day I was talking to somebody and he said, hey, doc, I eat plant products. I drink vodka. Think about it. Vodka is a plant product, right? Now, let me tell you about alcohol. The women's study that I mentioned, they gave them 1 drink of alcohol to see if that will lower the incidence of heart attack, because people say, oh, a drink of wine a day will lower your risk of heart attack. When they gave them 1 drink a day to women, the risk of breast cancer went up. They said, oh, maybe women should not be consuming 1 drink a day, maybe on a tablespoon of alcohol, the risk went up, breast cancer. So they thought, maybe that's too much. So they told her to hold a tablespoon of alcohol in the mouth for 10 seconds, spit it out. The breast cancer went up, rate went up. So there is no safe limit of alcohol, period. Dr. Rajan told me earlier today, we Adventist supposed to have such high health standards. He said a lot of alcoholism in Adventists. He gave me a very interesting statistic today, right? Unfortunately. Yes, you have a question there, ma'am. Wait for the microphone, please.
What would you say about kombucha that's made out of tea?
Yeah, well, the earlier studies seems to indicate that they may be okay. There were a couple of studies that showed that maybe there could be some liver toxicity. Again, it's just a couple of studies. I don't know for sure. So I would say at this time, I would be cautious. There's a question at the back.
Can you elaborate on the data regarding nightshade vegetables?
Nightshade vegetables like potatoes, tomatoes, eggplant, they have a tiny amount of nicotine. And the nicotine seems to be capable of reducing the chances of developing Parkinson's disease. Again, I told you, it's based on the study that published 40 years ago by the tobacco industry, showing that people who smoked regularly had fewer Parkinson's disease. And scientists initially said, these guys are trying to sell us more tobacco. And later on, they looked at the numbers and said, sure enough, yeah, actually, they have lower incidence. Then they looked into it and found out that, yes, it probably the nicotine, but then you don't want to take it from the form of cigarettes because that's going to increase your risk of lung cancer. Then you don't want to take nicotine patches either because that's quite high dose. But it appears that tiny amount of nicotine in the nightshade vegetables that is naturally present. Again, I tell you, God is amazing. He put that stuff in there, the right amount for you. You don't need to take any more than that. That's what you need.
Okay, I kind of have 2 unrelated questions.
Can you speak up, please?
Sorry, I have 2 unrelated questions.
Sure.
One about the nightshades. I know somebody who couldn't eat them.
Some people are allergic to it, yep.
Okay, so I wasn't real sure what was wrong with them because they've never bothered me. But the other one is about the spices. In our hurry-up world, You know, you can buy a little jar and it has a spice in it, and then you get on Facebook and you hear these doctors saying there's all kinds of fillers in those things and it's not good for you. You have to, of course, buy their product, which is, you know, just the original from the Alps or whatever. You know, so I'm just wondering, I guess, do you know what the quality difference is between buying the actual plant or buying what they've put in the little spice bottles?
Yeah, unfortunately, the standard for spices are not all that great. I would go with organic spices, and you know, you have to watch out for contamination. Some of the spices do have some contaminants, so you have to be very careful what you do. By the way, I have a few more minutes to finish up. Do you know how you can make it doesn't apply to spices, it applies to vegetables. How can you make a non-organic vegetable into almost organic? I didn't say organic, almost organic. Do you know? Any idea? Anybody knows? The basic problem with you know, non-organic vegetables is that they have a lot of pesticides. Okay, they may have slightly more nutrition, but that's minimal. The main advantage is you don't get pesticides. Okay, I can show you a simple trick that will reduce the pesticide contamination by 95% or greater.
Yeah, go ahead, tell us.
Anybody willing to cut me a check for $1,000 to get that? No. What you do, you take a basin of water, tap water, drop some salt into it, make a 10% salt solution, and soak the vegetables in the water for like 15 minutes, and then thoroughly rinse them in under running water to make sure you've removed all the salt. And it removes, would you believe, the salt water, 10% salt solution will remove more toxins and pesticides than any of the chemical washes that are supplied by the company, all the fancy stuff, the vegetable wash. None of them works as well as, they actually compared it. There's a study published, compared all these. They found that salt water did better than all of them. So you can make your own vegetable wash with regular salt, 10% salt solution, soak the vegetable for 15 minutes, and then rinse them completely off water with running water.
Can you put like strawberries and fruit in that salt water and it won't
Yes, you
affect the
can.
taste?
Anything that you can wash with salt water without affecting the, thing. Obviously, you cannot put cuts, fruit into it, but whole fruit like strawberries, you can wash them with salt water. But make sure you rinse them off in running water once you soak them in salt water. Vinegar does not work. I told you it's a study, based on a study, I'm quoting a study. They found that the standard vinegar did not work. They found that full strength vinegar, called 100% acetic acid, works, but that's expensive. How expensive is 10% salt water? So I'm not trying to insult you, but why do you want to reinvent the wheel? 10% salt water will reduce more than 95% of the toxin, pesticides. Why not just use it? Just soak them for 15 minutes, rinse them off completely in running water, and you got it. Any other questions? Yes, you have a question here. Somebody give him a microphone, please.
Can you talk about GMO products
Close it.
GMO products on our health?
Yes. Generally, right now, there's a huge debate going on. I don't want to get too carried away in it. Here's the way I see it. If you can find non-GMO, that is the best. But there are times when you can't quite make it. For example, how many of you know what a rapeseed is? Rapeseed. Rapeseed was grown in Canada and North Dakota, Minnesota, and they found that when they crushed the rapeseed to oil, it's called rapeseed oil, it contained, there's an acid, it's called erucic acid. ERUCIC. Erucic acid, about 30%, 30 parts per million parts. Erucic acid is a toxin. So the Canadian scientist figured out a way by genetic manipulation to bring down the content of erucic acid from 30 parts per million down to 3 parts per million, at which time it becomes safe enough to consume. Because it was modified in Canada, it was modified by the company called Canadian Oil Company. Now you know where the word canola comes from. Did you know that? Canola is actually Canadian Oil Company product. That was modified. So here's an example of, there are times when genetic modification may be okay, but then if you start using fish genes into, eggplant, I don't think that's a good idea. So I believe that if you can avoid GMO modified, genetically modified, product, you should avoid it as much as possible. But there may be times when you won't be able to avoid it. By the way, I don't even recommend canola oil. The best oil in the world is what? That is still in the seed. If you want the benefits of olive oil, eat olives. If you want the benefits of almond oil, eat almonds. Again, nobody's asked me any question. I would thought you would have prompted somebody to ask a question. Yes? Microphone, please. I'm not trying to insult you. I'm just playing with you people, teasing you. Yes?
Are there any spices that can help with kidneys?
With what?
Kidneys.
Kidneys? I don't know. All I know is that, I don't know of any specific spices that are particularly useful for kidney disease. I'm not aware of any. Dr. Rajan may know it. I don't know. The lady here has a question.
What was the oil, though? You didn't finish that.
I'm
What's
sorry?
a good oil for cooking? You said.
I'm sorry? Oh, okay. Yeah, I was hoping for somebody to ask me the question. So if I say the oil that is, the best oil is still in the seed of the nut, then how do you cook? Well, I did a lot of research. I actually published 3 pamphlets on it. By the way, I would have put that up in the slides. You can actually get all my newsletters. I published about 60 of them. 3 of them are on oils, part 1, 2, and 3. And I summarize all the findings, but I'll give you a gist of it. There are 3 kinds of fatty acids in oil: saturated, monounsaturated, polyunsaturated. Saturated is bad for you. Okay, that's the one that raises cholesterol. Monounsaturated is the best for you. Polyunsaturated is okay. All right? So you want an oil that has the maximum amount of monounsaturated, almost no saturated, and small amount of polyunsaturated. That's your best profile. I believe the oil that meets all the criteria is this oil that you may not have heard of. It's called algae oil. Algae. Water. Algae. Growing in the water. Actually, there's only one company that makes algae oil. It's called Thrive. It used to be sold in Walmart. Quite expensive, but I can't find it anymore. I don't know what happened to the company. The company website is still up there. It has the best amount, it has the highest, smoke point. It had the lowest saturated fat, like half a gram, and had the highest monounsaturated, about 12 or 13. Now, it is expensive. It costs you, $15 a bottle, about half a pint or something. It's quite expensive. So I was researching and said, do I have to spend that much money to maintain health? And I found another oil that comes almost to the same standard. It has just a tiny more amount of saturated, like 1 gram, and a slightly less amount of monosaturated, about 1 gram. Instead of 13, I think it's 12 and a half or 12. And that oil is called high oleic acid sunflower oil. Not any sunflower oil. It has to be the high oleic acid sunflower oil. Oleic acid is OLEIC. It's a, and that is the one that I use for cooking. Remember, I cook for about 15 to 20 people every Saturday. I'll go broke if I cooked with algae oil every week. So I use I'm sorry?
What about coconut oil?
Coconut oil, contrary to all the popular belief, please do not use coconut oil. It's bad for you. Somebody said, oh, it cures Alzheimer's and all that. So I actually went and did a research. There is a site you can go to. You can look at all the articles ever published in the world are in that site. It's run by a quasi-government agency, by NIH. And you can go to the site and search. And I searched for coconut oil. I only found one article that showed the beneficial effect of coconut oil. You know what it showed? It won the benefit of coconut oil in the testicular function of Mongolian gerbils. If you own Mongolian gerbils, you want the testicular function of your gerbils to be in good shape, then you feed them coconut oil. I have not found a single human study. Now, I may miss something. Somebody told me there may be some articles in India, and I said, I'm still waiting for the articles to come through. I haven't found any article in the world literature about the coconut oil benefits in controlled studies. I mean, people will tell you, oh, it's good for this, good for that, but no controlled studies have been published that I'm aware of.
What about styling your
any
hair?
article? I'm sorry?
What about styling your hair with coconut oil?
Can you remove your mask? I can't understand.
No, just joking. It was just a joke. Sorry. Bad joke.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I said, what about styling your hair with coconut oil?
Hair for hair? I don't know. I think I may
It's just a joke. I'm
I
sorry.
think I may have used some coconut oil. Why do you think I have so much hair? She had another question. Yes.
Can you talk about the difference between taking omega-3 that comes from seafood versus plant-based?
I was going to show a slide on that tomorrow since you asked me. I don't know I will be even able to show the slides tomorrow, but Emil Burr, B-U-R-R, did a fascinating study. I had that study in my computer. In 1989, he published a paper. He took about 2,000 men, divided the two groups, and fed them, half of them, with increased amount of fish oil and fish. And the other half were told to be on a standard American diet. And then he followed them for a few years and published a paper saying that the men who took fish oil and fish consumption seemed to have a lower incidence of heart attack and strokes. And you know what happened? The whole fish oil industry exploded, $1 billion industry. Okay? And unfortunately, and I'm sorry I have to say this, I apologize ahead of time. Doctors, do you know what the average amount of human nutrition doctors learn in medical school? 20 hours. How much can you master in 20 hours? Okay? And I get annoyed because just earlier this week, a patient, I said, stay away from fish oil. He said, why? My doctor said, I've got to take fish oil every day. I said, I had to, actually, she wouldn't believe me. I had to pull up my laptop computer, show her the study. I said, Emil Burr in 1989 published this paper, and immediately fish oil industry just exploded. Fish oil, fish oil, fish oil. The same Emil Burr, 4 years later, in 1991, 1989, 1991, 92, something like that, he published another article. Why? Because his group said, we did that study, but I don't know whether the numbers were that clear-cut. So instead of reanalyzing the data, they decided we will do another study with more volunteers. This time they used 3,000 volunteers. The first study is called the, what's called that? DOT study. DOT, the acronym, DART, DOT1 trial. So the same researchers did a DOT2 trial 4 years later, published with more volunteers. Okay, 3,000 volunteers showed that actually men who took fish oil actually had increased heart attack rates. So I asked people, this lady, I said, does your doctor tell you about the, second study? Oh, there was a second study? Now, why wouldn't the doctors know about the second study? Because the industry has no reason to publish the second study. It goes against what they want to do. They are not lying to you. They're just quoting the first study. They're not telling you the second study, but the same group showing that exactly what they had done before was wrong. They had new information. This is why fish oil is extremely dangerous. It's full of toxins. In California, they purchased fish oil from reputable companies, reputable brands, brought it to the laboratory, checked it, and they found toxins, industrial toxins, 80 times more than what is considered safe for human consumption. Nobody asked me a question. Should be asking a question for me.
Why?
How come they're able to do that? How come nobody asked me that question? How come they can sell that? They have 80 times more toxins than what is considered safe for human consumption. Because FDA cannot control it. It's called a food supplement. So FDA has no authority over controlling that stuff. They can sell anything they want as long as it's considered a food supplement. You still want to take fish oil? Don't even feed it to the dogs. Okay, here's a question. I have a question for you. Give me a microphone, please. Listen to this carefully, please. Sir, hold the microphone. If you want, please remove your, I can hear you clearly. Everybody can hear you.
They promote fish oil with omega-3, saying the benefits of omega-3 fatty acids.
Okay, I'm going to walk you through this. Which part, hold on to the microphone, please, because we're going to have a dialogue. Which organ in the fish's body makes omega-3?
I don't know.
Take a wild guess. Liver? No. Kidney? No. Heart? No. The answer is no organ. Fish doesn't make omega-3. So, how come you're not asking me the next question? How does it have omega-3?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, because it eats an algae in the water, golden algae. That is the one that produces omega-3. Where do you think I get my omega-3 from? Golden algae. So, if you want to buy omega-3, get it plant-based, fish-free omega-3.
Okay.
It will do the same benefit as fish oil without the toxic effects. I bypass the fish because the fish eats algae, and then you eat the fish to get the omega-3. Why not bypass the fish, the toxin, and get it directly from the algae? That's what I do. And the cost of the pill is exactly the same. It's no more expensive. You say, fish oil is cheaper. It's not. It's just as expensive as, or cheaper, whatever you call it. The same price as omega-3. Any questions? Oh, you had a question, yeah. 10 more minutes and we'll quit.
How does a vegan get B12?
I'm sorry?
How does a vegan get B12 without taking a pill?
Okay. You have to, the only supplements I recommend for human beings is vitamin D3, about 2,000 units per day. But in the pandemic area, you may want to take more. But general requirement is about 2,000 units a day. Number 2, vitamin B12. By the way, when it comes to vitamin D3, they tested the level of vitamin D3 in surfers in Hawaii. These guys are walking around with just, thongs, surfing in the waves. So they are always in the sun, right? They found they didn't have enough vitamin D in the skin, in the body. So there is in fact, a Mayo physician once gave a presentation. She said, there is a pandemic of vitamin D deficiency. It looks like the whole world is deficient in vitamin D3. So you must take vitamin D3. You don't need more than 2,000 because the curve for the vitamin D is like this. As you increase the amount of vitamin D dose, the death rate drops, and you keep on increasing the vitamin D3, the death rate rises again. In other words, there is a sweet point. That's about 2,000 units. In a pandemic time, maybe you want to take more, Other than that, you only 2,000. Vitamin B12 should be consumed by all human beings, particularly people who are on a plant-based diet, because studies have been shown that it's extremely dangerous. You have vitamin B12 deficiency, and Dr. Raja knows that there's a very weird disease called the subacute combined degeneration, where, again, to give you a very summary, vitamin B12 and folic acid are involved in both the integrity of the nervous system as well as the blood cells. Red blood cells, for maturation, they need both vitamin B12 and folic acid. So what happens is, when there is not enough vitamin B12 or folic acid, they interact with each other. So if you feed people folic acid only without supplying vitamin B12, what happens? The blood cells say, I need B12. So they actually steal it from the nerves. So the nerves start degenerating. So that's called subacute combined degeneration. So you should never take folic acid without vitamin B12, unless you know your B12 level is okay. And I already told you folic acid is not a good idea. You should be taking folate from the green leafies. Vitamin B12 is important. You must consume it every day, because if you don't have enough vitamin B12, nerves don't work right. The blood cells won't form correctly. Yes, you had a question.
For some reason, I cannot take any B vitamins over the counter. It makes me very sick, and I get a rash.
You can get it by injection. Vitamin B12, you can get injectable vitamin B12 once a month, twice a month, something like that. The interesting thing is, when you take vitamin B12 by injection, it is stored in the liver. It can last for, in fact, when you stop taking vitamin B12 supplements, it might take a year or 6 months to a year before the body shows effect of deficiency. So you may not feel anything until much later, okay? I know of a gentleman that he had erectile dysfunction. He was a healthy man on a plant-based diet, erectile dysfunction. When you check the vitamin D3 level and vitamin B12 level were extremely low. When we supplemented it, erectile dysfunction disappeared.
How much B12 should you take a day?
Actually, you need only 15 micrograms to maybe 20 micrograms, but they don't make any tablet that dose. The smallest dose I've seen is about 1,000 micrograms, 1 milligram, which is the same thing. And so, no harm, I told you, it's stored in the liver, so you can take that. That's not a problem. It's the A and E you want to stay away from. So, going back to vitamin B12 every day, D3, and omega-3 is a good idea, about 200 to 300 milligrams a day, omega-3. Non-fish, algae-based omega-3. Number 4, elderly patients should be taking also, it's called carnosine. All vegans should be taking L-carnosine. It's not carnitine, carnosine, C-A-R-N-O-S-A-I-N-E, carnosine. And finally, people who are advanced age should also take creatine. Now, bodybuilders take tons and tons of creatine. That's not good for you. All you need is about a gram a day. So 1 gram of creatine, 1 gram of carnosine, vitamin B12, vitamin D3, and omega-3. Those are the supplements that really benefit you. The rest of them really don't help. Any other questions? We got 4 more minutes. I'm sorry, sir?
The benefits of the turmeric fruit.
Turmeric, I told you, it reduces cancer, it reduces arthritis pain, inflammation of all kinds. It actually may have something to do with improving your overall health in more aspects than that. You see, most of that, we study 1 or 2 effects. We don't know what else is there. By and large, it is like an orchestra. All the instruments come together to play music, and you don't want to take 1 or 2 things and say, hey, that's going to do the trick. You want the whole package. So I would say, cook with turmeric, more turmeric, and if you want recipes, you can email me and I will send you the recipes we have developed, and no charge for that. You can have handouts. All the handouts are published newsletters. The email is drchelliah@heartnd.com. I'll give it to you again tomorrow. drchelliah@heartnd.com. Heart is like heart in the chest. ND stands for North Dakota.com. Any questions? 2 more questions. We'll finish up.
Oh, you're going to ask one.
What is your opinion about soybeans? Because in Europe, doctors recommend, over the United States is no.
Well, what do you think?
I don't know.
Well, unfortunately, it's a long, big subject, but I'll see if I can summarize in 3 minutes that we have left. Women with 1 breast cancer removed were divided in 2 groups. One group ate a lot of beans, including soybeans. The other group did not consume beans. The women who did not consume beans, less than 50% of them were alive at the end of 5 years. Whereas people who ate a lot of beans, including soybeans, were all more than 90% of them were alive at the end of 5 years. What does it tell you about soybeans? Now, there are some myths about soybeans that you should be aware of. People say men should not take soybeans because it has estrogen-like compound that will make your breasts grow and all that. That's all nonsense. There are 2 kinds of receptors. Again, I told you it's a big topic, but I'll see if I can summarize it. There are 2 kinds of receptors, the E1 receptor and the alpha and beta receptors. The receptor for soybeans, there are alpha and beta receptors, alpha 1, alpha 2, whatever you want to call it. 2 kinds of receptors. The estrogen receptor, E1 receptor, is the one that is stimulated by estrogen tablets, estrogen supplements. They cause increased clot formation, increased breast cancer, uterine cancer, all kinds of negative stuff. Okay? But there's a E2 receptor. That is the one that the phytoestrogen, that is the estrogen-like compound that's coming out of soybeans, stimulates. So it does not do the same bad effect as the estrogen. Another point, even one of my mentors, I learned from other doctors. There are 2 of my mentors. One is Dr. Greger, Michael Greger. He has a site called the nutritionfacts.org. He has a lot of information. I take a lot of information from him. I had him on my radio station once. It was very fascinating. Another one I learned a lot from is a doctor in California. He used to work with the Adventist health system, McDougall, John McDougall. He published a newsletter. On one of the newsletters, he said the same thing. We should be careful. Particularly men should not be eating soybeans because he said that soybeans increase the level of a chemical called IGF-1, which I'm going to talk about tomorrow. IGF-1 level goes up, okay? And IGF-1 stimulates cancer growth. So this is what Dr. McDougall said. But actually, I respect him a lot. He's been in practice longer than I have been. But he made a mistake in that article. Because what actually happens is, it is true that when you eat soybeans, the level of the IGF-1 goes up, but the level of another chemical called IGF-1 binding protein also goes up. What does the IGF binding protein do? It's like a emergency brake. What happens is it grabs the IGF-1 and says, you're not going anywhere, I'm going to throw you in jail. See what I'm saying? It's called the binding protein. It binds it, says, I won't let you go. You can't do anything you want to do. So the level of IGF binding protein goes up. Okay? So the net effect is there's not enough free IGF-1 to do its damage. Therefore, you can eat soybeans as much as you want, men and women, no problem. Now, they found that if you ate more than 20 cups of soybeans a day, it may be harmful. How many of you are willing to eat 20 cups of soybeans a day? Okay? So what do you think? Conclusion of the matter. It is safe. You had a question.
What about getting your omega-3s from flaxseed and walnuts?
You're stealing all the thunder from my tomorrow's talk. Flaxseed is good for you.
Oh.
It has some omega-3, but flaxseed does something even more important. In a study in California, what they did was they took men who had biopsies, needle biopsies showing prostate cancer. So they scheduled him for prostate removal 30 days later. And so they thought 30 days, let's do something. So they gave them 1 tablespoon of freshly ground flaxseed 3 times a day. And then when they removed the prostate gland, they sliced it, put it under the microscope. They found that the prostate cancer had already begun to shrunk. That effective is flaxseed. How many of you consume flaxseed on a daily basis? If not, why not? One last question, then we have to quit. I want to save something for tomorrow. Yes.
I want to put a plug in. There's a Indian,
Can you speak close to the microphone, please?
Okay, there's an Indian grocery store close to here.
Yes.
And I'm sure that would be a good place to buy your turmeric and your
Yes.
cayenne.
Yes.
Versus Walmart.
Right. You can buy a couple of pounds for about $4, whereas if you buy it in Walmart or one of the grocery stores, it'll cost you $15 for about an ounce. So that's where I buy my turmeric. Okay. One more question. I have to save some for tomorrow.
I want to ask about beetroot.
I'm sorry?
Beetroot. Beets.
Beets are extremely good for you, but not beet powder. You need to eat the beets, cooked beets. A study showed that when the runners ate beets, they were running faster and they were able to do more work with less energy consumption. In other words, less oxygen consumption. So the efficiency of the exercise went up dramatically with consumption of beet juice. Okay, let's come to a close. Let's have a word of prayer and finish up.
We actually are going to have a word of prayer and a closing thing, but lots of information. I'm sure we're going to forget half of it when we leave, but but it's good questions. We do have a videotape, DVD that Leonard is working on, so we have this information for you. We're going to share some emails so you guys can reach out and get some information. He has a nice radio show too. You guys can log on and listen to it. He's on YouTube everywhere if you want to search for him. So he has some nice talks. I've listened to a bunch of it. I saw some of his articles. They're nice to read. But thank you again. Really enjoyed that today. Let's close.
Dear Father in heaven, Lord, we thank you for this opportunity to give us this beginning of the Sabbath day to come together to hear wisdom and things that is going to benefit us and to help us live a better life. We ask you that you would help us to remember and use these bits of wisdom in our daily lives. And we pray for the ones that could not be here. Help us to share this wisdom with them as well. Bless this offering. Use it for your cause and for your glory. For we ask these few mercies in Jesus' name. Amen.